Welcome to the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. I am Dean Phillips, and I am your host for today. I am also Precision Metal Forming Association's technical director, focused around technical training across our industry. And I have with me today from Dallas, not Dallas, the city in Texas, but Dallas Industries, and Philip Chacko. It is great to have you here, sir.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Dean.
It's good to have you on here finally. We've been kind of trying to make this happen for a little while, so it's great to have you here.
Absolutely.
I always ask everybody, what's your 5-year perspective? What do you see coming over the next 5 years?
Honestly, I would say the next 5 years seems fairly similar in my mind to the previous 5 years too, where there's going to be a continuous push in automation, in safety, and I know, going back, kind of referencing your presentation, your secret sauce presentation at the Metal Stamp Technology Conference, I think a lot of it goes back to job setups and being able to consistently and accurately repeat whether or not it's die or feed line setup, press automation, all of it, being able to accurately reproduce results over and over and over again. So whether or not it's first shift, third shift, doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. And I think along those same lines, I think one of the big things is, and I'm sure this is true for you, you've seen more integration where people want to integrate the control on the feed line into their automation line, into their press line. Are you seeing more and more of that?
Absolutely. Whether even if it's not a turnkey project where everything's flowing through one of the larger press or transfer companies, just on any old project, the ability to make operators' lives easier, whether or not it's putting a press and transfer screens, HMIs, all on physically the same HMI, the same Allen Bradley panel view, being able to swap back and forth on physically one screen, or even we also have customers where they want 3 separate screens for 3 separate tools, right? For their press, their transfer, and their feed line, but they all want it on the same place. So that way that one operator doesn't have to walk 1,000 feet back and forth all around the line to get what they need.
Right.
Yeah, varying ways on how people want to do it. And then with safety too, integrating safety, but then both integrating and being able to separate the safety so that people can work on one end of the line safely while the other end is operating something.
Yeah, I've seen more and more challenges with that over the years where they need to integrate the robot when the robot's in position and they're running it in robot mode. But then they sometimes will take the robot out of the area and they're going to run it as a strict coil line. And so they want to be able to do both things, but each one has its own safety integration and then interfacing and handshaking going on. Those could be real challenges. And I'm sure for you guys, it can be pretty hectic. There was a project that you and I had worked on before at an appliance manufacturer that was using 2 different lines, so to speak, where the coil that was being processed, one was stainless, and what was the other one?
It's essentially, one was stainless or their Class A material, and then everything else was considered dirty material, but mostly it was galvanized. So lots of those galvanized flakes on the straightening rolls.
And you're trying to minimize that as an issue, but you want to be able to do it. You want to be able to integrate those two feed lines that you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
How much more are you seeing? You know, we talked about the 5-year looking forward over the last 5 years as a comparison. How much more do you see today where people are looking for a solution, not just a product? I'm not just looking to buy a feed line. I'm looking for a material handling solution.
Honestly, I would say significantly more, and I think that's been a progressive change too, as technology has changed, and that the feeders that we provide now are not the same kind of feeders that we used to provide 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, right? There's a lot
Right.
that's changed, not just physically, but the the thought process as how to an operator needs to go about programming and setting up the job. The whole method of feeding is different. So that is one thing that we definitely try to work with customers to help change their frame of reference as to how this new technology can really be, like you said, a solution, not just plug and play replacement for what they're doing and
Yeah.
getting the most out of the equipment that they have, right?
Hmm. Are you seeing more on controls a desire for people to make it more intuitive and user friendly?
Oh, always, always. And that's one thing that we always accept and look for feedback from customers as well, whether or not I know there is a customer of ours that specifically requested a screen on our HMIs where it walked through the whole process of how to thread a coil start to finish. So it granted it some this customer and their line was a bit complicated, so like there were a couple pages of screens of like
Mm,
process, like, did you check this, did you check this, once you check this you need to do this, and then having all of your buttons accessible all in one path. So and as operators or come and go from line to line, there is a standard process that anyone should be able to walk up to the line and safely and responsibly be able to thread a coil. So yeah,
yeah.
there's constant changes on whether or not it's updating HMIs to make things easier, physically changing things on the machine to make access to something better for operators and maintenance. Yeah, absolutely. That is a constant
Hmm,
thing that we try and work with.
that's great. It
Hmm.
let's change gears a little bit here. Tell me what's going on in your district. I know that you're active in the districts, and uh, I know things are always changing, and we're always doing new things. What are some exciting things you see going on now in the districts and in the networking side?
Yeah, so specifically speaking about East Michigan district, where we're located, not in Dallas, Texas, but but in Troy, Michigan. But we've been very excited the last couple years to kind of revamp the district and get some energy going here and hosting some events. So I know in January we just hosted our annual auto show event where we had Mike Wall from S&P Mobility come and give his outlook and forecast on the automotive industry, and then gave a personal tour on the auto show, which was very highly, again, requested and attended this year, which we're very excited about. But I know one thing I'm personally very excited about that I'm hoping our district can get involved in is FIRST Robotics. So whether or not it's volunteering at an event, helping sponsor some local teams, but finding a way to really get involved on the student engagement side too. Because I
Mhm.
know, again, personally, First Robotics played a big role in my high school experience and getting myself into engineering and manufacturing. That was really what got the bug in me. So I only see positive things, a lot of positive things coming from it, and
Right.
especially looking at long term of my manufacturing, we need to have some younger people come into the industry and be excited about the industry.
Yeah.
So I think it's a
And
great way.
I would say too, the other aspect of that, when we've had a robotics competition here in Tennessee, one of the things that was really, I had never thought of the impact of it, but getting manufacturers to be at the same event when there's a robotics competition, to hear the people in manufacturing get excited about the future and get excited about the people coming into the industry
Mhm.
because they see these kids, and a, a lot of people give a bum rap to the next generation coming along, and everyone's like, they're not passionate about it, this isn't important
Mhm.
to them. And you see these kids in the robotics competition, and they talk about it passionately about their robot, how they designed it, and all the aspects of it. And to hear the manufacturers talk about it, they were excited for them and excited for the future. And I think you're absolutely right. If we want to get more people into our industry and into metal forming, it's going to be on the backs of people like the robotics competition.
Absolutely. And to anyone listening too, if you have not been to a FIRST Robotics competition, I would highly, highly recommend. The energy is something that I would have never expected going into it. And like you said, how excited people are and motivated people are to show off what they've done in such a short time span too, right?
Oh yeah.
If I remember, if it's less than 10 weeks of like when they announce what the project is to when they have to stop.
Right.
It's a really short time frame.
Yeah. Vex robotics competition we had at Manufacturing Day, which is the first Friday in October. And down here, a lot of the schools start at the beginning of August. So you have August and September to get your robot ready for competition by the first week of October. It was really quick. And
it's a race.
Absolutely. So tell me, what are some of the challenges you're seeing in manufacturing or in your district from the standpoint of what are you hearing from manufacturing as a whole?
I mean, not to kind of harp on the same topic, but I think a lot of it is getting new blood and new younger people into the industry, replacing some of the really experienced people that might be aging out of the industry and workforce, being able to backfill and replace that. And some of it is being able to do more with less with automation, but realistically, no one wants to do less. Everyone wants to do more. And so if you can keep your workforce and continue to invest in automation, you can do even more, right? I don't think anyone realistically wants to cut their workforce and replace it with automation. Everyone wants to be able to keep their workforce and allow their workforce to do more and be more empowered to either whether it's run multiple lines, take on more projects, be more I guess less reactive and more proactive.
Yeah, it's interesting that you put it that way too, because from a business plan sort of perspective, the more things you can do to add value to your people, so that that person, the work that they're doing over 1 hour period of time, in the old days, that person was putting a bolt on a nut, by hand. In the old days when you were building cars or other things like that. Now you're trying to add more value. You add some automation, you add tools so that they can put more bolts on per hour, so that they can add more value to the vehicle, not less.
Absolutely. And also, right, so part of it is that there's less risk or stress on the actual employee. If they're able to have these amazing tools at their disposal to make their lives easier, then I think that's one of the big keys.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you mentioned that, because one of the things that I've heard is that since we have a limited workforce, as far as the number of people go, how do we make their scale of how much time they can spend at the job longer, or that they can be more productive at it? It doesn't do anybody any good if you have somebody that comes in and it's an extremely physical job. That's why things like exoskeletons and robots add value, so that that person's career that longevity can be extended out longer, and that they can perform at a higher level with less risk and less exposure to those hazards. So
absolutely. No, and honestly, some of it is I would say can be helped with automation. Some of it might just be replacing essentially like an air feed with the servo feed. I know there's a customer of ours that was stamping bars, like 1/2 inch thick bars, and they had 2 or 3 pretty darn big fellas that are all day every day lifting up these 20-foot bars and sticking them onto like a roller rack essentially and sliding them hand by hand all day, every day. And
Yes.
just having a simple system to allow them so that they don't have to lift these 20-foot bars all day, every day. Man, they were thrilled. They were
Yeah.
absolutely thrilled. They could focus more on like keeping the machine going and to focus on maintenance stuff, not necessarily just picking up, setting down, and then potentially hurting themselves.
Right. Yeah. And that's a risk. I mean, it is a physical job, whether you are physically lifting a part or not. One of the things that on the press brake side of business is like, so if you're doing fabrication or things like that, material handling, how you handle parts, and taking parts off of a line, even whether you're doing automotive side panels or stuff like
Mhm.
that, you're handling those parts. The chances of getting a gash on your arm is, we've gotten better, so the
Mhm.
safeguarding of things that we do, but using physical assist mechanisms like an airlift,
Yeah,
or
it's like
even,
even like tool balancers, right?
yes, yes, all of those things can increase the longevity of your workforce, which makes them happier, more likely to stay, less likely to move to another job or completely leave our industry as a whole, which
Hmm.
we've also seen as a trend. Is how do we not let that happen? How do we make sure that people are more of that? I'm glad you brought that up, though, as
Yeah.
one of the challenges, though. Workforce development is always a challenge in how we educate, but even through technology, like you mentioned, making the controls more accessible, easier to use, less chance of being prone to making a mistake.
Hmm.
All of those things can be a tremendous asset.
Absolutely. And then again, going back to like student outreach and bringing in the next generation, right? I think a lot of it where PMA members can help assist on some of this is just exposure to students too, where helping frame their frame of reference of what manufacturing is. I think everyone's kind of got an idea of like a really dirty and heavy lifting
Yeah.
environment where people don't necessarily want to be in. But that is
Mhm.
not, I won't say that's not always or not the case everywhere. Some places may require it, but for the most part, there are lots of opportunities and in this industry in manufacturing metal forming that are awesome places to work, right?
Yeah, yeah. So if you're out there and you're listening and you're a student or a young engineer, you know, we have a lot of opportunities in robotics. We have opportunities in cobots, automation. How are you doing? Even using drones. We have more people using
Mhm.
drones in the metal forming industry for inspection on their presses and things like that. If these are
Absolutely.
areas you're passionate about, we've got an opportunity for you.
Absolutely.
So, with that, I want to thank you again, Philip, for jumping on here with me today. Thank you so much. And we want to thank you for all your hard work in the district and all your hard work for everybody to make this a great environment to work in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dean. Thank you for having me. And thank you for hosting this and doing what you do.
Absolutely, sir. Everybody, make it a great day.